Hey, what's up, guys? It's DarkArmedDuelist, and today doing an Obelisk The Tormentor deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because we got two new amazing cards out of the Megatons that support Obelisk The Tormentor, which is just absolutely amazing. I'm really excited to show you guys this build because I found the best way to actually play these new support cards is by including them with Lightsworn cards to be able to mill your copy of Obelisk The Tormentor from deck to grave, which is absolutely crazy. So without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name skipped in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Obelisk the Tormentor. This card is a great 3-of in the deck that you're going to want to summon this card out all the time in. It has the ability to tribute 3 monsters to normal summon out this card to your side of the field, and it cannot be normal set. This card's normal summon cannot be negated, and when normal summon, cards and effects cannot be activated, and neither player can target this card with card effects. It also has the ability once per turn, during the end phase, if this card was special summon, send it to the graveyard, and you can also tribute 2 monsters to destroy all monsters that your opponent controls, and this card cannot declare an attack the turn you activate that effect. But it's a really insane thing about this card because it's actually really easy to bring out in this deck by just milling it to the graveyard with your Lightsworn cards and bringing it back with the Breaking Ruin God, which is absolutely insane how easy it is to summon Obelisk the Tormentor in this deck. I then play 3 copies of Judgment Dragon. Judgment Dragon is an additional boss monster in the deck that's super easy to summon out because you can just mill a bunch of Lightsworns to the graveyard, and when you have 4 Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard with different names, you can special summon this card to your side of the field, pay 1,000 life points, and destroy all the cards on the field, which is just absolutely awesome for this card to be able to do. And during the end phase, you send the top 4 cards from your deck to the graveyard, which will help you mill out your copy of Obelisk the Tormentor to bring it back with your copy of the Breaking Ruin God. I then play 3 copies of Wolf Lightsworn Beast. This card is a really good 3-of as well in the deck because if it's milled to the graveyard, then you get to special summon it back to your field, which is super helpful to be able to use with Obelisk the Tormentor's effect. I then play 3 copies of Raiden Hand of the Lightsworn. This card is a great normal summon in the deck because it has the ability that when it's on your side of the field during your main phase, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Then, if any Lightsworn monsters were sent to the graveyard by this effect, this card gains 200 attack points until the end of your opponent's turn, boosting this card up to 1900. And then, once per turn, during your end phase, you send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, which just helps you mill out more cards from your deck. I then play a single copy of Lila, the Lightsworn Sorceress. This card is a really good card that can pop spells and traps. By just shifting this card into defense position, you can target a spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy it, which is a great effect. And then during the end phase, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. I then play a single copy of Felice. Felice is very similar to your copy of Wolf, that if it's milled from your deck, you get to special summon this card back to your side of the field. But this card can actually pop monsters on the field because you can tribute this card and then target 1 monster your opponent controls and destroy that target, then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. I then play 2 copies of Lumina. Lumina is a great 2-of in the deck because this card has a really awesome effect that once per turn you can discard a card and then target a level 4 or lower Lightsworn monster in your graveyard and special summon it back to your side of the field. And that target is put on the field in any position. You can put it in attack, you can put it in defense, it doesn't matter, which is really good. And then once per turn, during your end phase, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, which is a really good effect to help you mill out your copy of Obelisk. I then play a single copy of Minerva. Minerva is a good 1-of because if it's sent to the graveyard, you send an additional card from your deck to the graveyard from the top of the deck, which is a great effect on this card. And she's also a tuner, which can help out the deck a lot, an additional name. I then play a single copy of Raikou Twilight Sworn Fighter. This card is the only Twilight Sworn that we actually play in the deck, but this card is super good because if this card is normal summon or flip face up, you can banish a Lightsworn monster from your hand or graveyard and then banish 1 card on the field, and it doesn't target, which is a great effect. It also has the ability once per turn, if your other Lightsworn monster effect is activated, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. I then play a single copy of Chaos Nephites. This card is a great one of in the deck because it can actually revive itself back from the graveyard, and it's just a great card to be able to put on your side of the field. It cannot be normal summoned or set, it must be special summoned by its own effect, and if a card on the field is destroyed by a card effect, you can banish a light and a dark monster from your graveyard, except another copy of this card to special summon this card from the graveyard or your hand. And you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, and if this card is special summoned, then you can target one card your opponent controls and two cards in their graveyard and banish them, which is a great effect. By putting your copy of Judgment Dragon on the field, you're only going to be able to destroy every card on the field and then have a 3000 attack point monster. But with this card, it's going to put an additional 2400 points of damage on the board, and then when you activate the Breaking Ruin God along with this card, you're actually going to be able to put an additional 4000 points on board, giving you about 9400 damage to help you OTK the opponent. I then play a single copy of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent and one copy of White Dragon Wyvern Buster. These are in here because you can banish either a dark monster or a light monster from the graveyard to special summon them from your hand to your side of the field. And if either one of them is sent to the graveyard from the field, you get to search the other one from the deck, which is a great effect to be able to roll through your cards. I then play a single copy of Perform Age Trick Clown. This card is a great one of the deck because if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to revive back a Perform Age monster, but you take 1000 points of damage and its attack and defense becomes 0, but it's just an additional way to get another monster on the field. I then play a single copy of Damage Juggler. Damage Juggler is just a really good one of to prevent damage that you might take while you're playing this deck, and also has the ability to manage this card from the graveyard to add a Perform Age monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. I then play two copies of Hat Tricker. Hat Tricker is a really good 2 of in the deck because if you have 2 monsters on the field, then you can special summon this card to your side of the field, which is a great effect to be able to put an additional level 4 on the field so you can make your copy of Minerva a little easier. I then play 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious. Destiny Hero Malicious is a great 2 of the deck because if you have one in grave, you can banish one from grave to special summon one from deck, which is an awesome effect. I then play a single copy of Zaphros the Elite because we can bounce a card from our field back to our hand, take 400 points of damage, and bring this card back to the field, which is really good on a level 4 monster, so we can make Minerva. But this card is a great one in the deck because you can bounce cards that you might want to use later. I then play a single copy of Plague Spreader Zombie. Plague Spreader Zombie is a really good one of as well, because if this card is in the graveyard, you can place a card from your hand on top of the deck to special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. But this card is really good to get you an additional monster on the field, so you can either tribute summon out your copy of Obelisk, or use its effect to be able to board wipe your opponent. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. I know, that was a lot of monsters, but it is technically a Lightsworn Obelisk deck, so it's really cool to be able to play that many monsters, and we're trying to mill Obelisks to the graveyard. We then play, for the spells, we're playing 3 copies of the Breaking Ruin God. This card is really insane, and you're about to see why we're playing so many Lightsworn cards in this deck. So this card has the ability that the activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated, nor can its effects be negated at all. You special summon an Obelisk The Tormentor from your hand or your graveyard, and if you do, it is unaffected by your opponent's cards and effects this turn, which is why we're trying to mill our copy of Obelisk The Tormentor from our deck to the graveyard so we can bring it back to the field with our copy of the Breaking Ruin God. It also has the ability that if you tribute 2 or more monsters that you control at the same time to activate your card's effect while you control an Obelisk The Tormentor, you can banish this card from the graveyard to banish all monsters in your opponent's graveyard, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each card banished, which is super amazing because you can actually just go in for game after you use this card if you can do 4000 damage to your opponent, and this card is really good in the tier limit matchup. I then play 3 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade. Charge of the Light Brigade sends the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, and then adds a level 4 lower Lightsworn monster from our deck to our hand, which is a awesome effect to be able to use with this card. We then play 3 copies of Solar Recharge to round out the spells. Solar Recharge is really good because you discard any Lightsworn monster to be able to draw 2 cards and then send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. This card is great to be able to dig into the deck so you can go for your copy of Breaking of the Ruin God, which is just really nice for this deck to have. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a few traps, and that's going to be 3 copies of Soul Energy Max. Soul Energy Max is a really insane Obelisk the Tormentor support card, because if you control Obelisk the Tormentor, whose original attribute is Divine in your monster zone, you contribute 2 other face-up monsters and destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible. And then, if you do, inflict 4,000 damage to your opponent. That is absolutely crazy, because then you can just attack your opponent for game with Obelisk the Tormentor. And it also has the ability that during your main or battle phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add an Obelisk the Tormentor from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then, immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon Obelisk the Tormentor, which is a really awesome effect to be able to use, because if you mill this card to graveyard off of any of your Lightsworn monsters, you can just banish this card to be able to search Obelisk the Tormentor from your deck to your hand, and then normal summon it pretty much for free. You do have to tribute 3 monsters, but it doesn't waste your normal summon, which is really awesome. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Minerva. Minerva is just really good in this deck because you can mill 3 cards. And for every Lightsworn monster you mill to the graveyard off this card's effect, you get to draw a card, which is super good to help you dig for your copy of the Breaking Ruin God. I then played a single copy of number 60. Number 60 is really good because you can draw 2, discard 1, special summon a monster back from the graveyard, or double the attack points of a monster, which is really insane on this card. 1 copy of the Zombie Vampire, because it makes it super easy to mill cards from the deck to the graveyard, because when this card is summoned, you can actually mill the top 4 cards of both players' decks to the graveyard, which will help you with your copy of the Breaking Ruin God's effect to be able to banish monsters from your opponent's graveyard, and also be able to revive a monster from the grave, because if you hit any monsters with this card's effect, you can bring one of them back to the field. We then play a single copy of Double A Zeus just to board wipe the field, just in case Judgment Dragon isn't quite enough, which usually it is, but this card is just really good in the deck to be able to board wipe the field. 1 copy of Psychic and Punisher, because we can make it, and this card is just really good because while your life points are less than or equal to your opponent's, this synchro summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. And then once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, target a monster your opponent controls, and one card that you control and 1 card your opponent controls, and banish them both. And at the start of battle phase, you can make this card gain attack, equal difference between your life points and your opponent's life points. And if you do that 4,000 burn damage against the opponent with Soul Energy Max, this card will go up by 4,000 attack points, going to 7,500. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is really good in the deck to be able to make as a negate. You can play the copy of the level 10 Sword Soul monster, which is an option for you guys if you want to play a little bit more budget with this deck. Play a single copy of Beals. Beals is really easy to summon to the field and can protect itself and, or live through a copy of Judgment Dragon, destroying everything on the field, which is why I play this card as a 1-of. Play a single copy of Borreload Savage. Borreload Savage is just a walking negate in the deck. Just in case we can't OTK the opponent, we can summon this card to negate the opponent, which is really nice. We then play a single copy of Michael the Arc Lightsworn, because it is a great level 7 monster to summon the field, because you can pay 1,000 life points, target a card on the field, and banish that target, which is a really good effect. And then play a single copy of Coral Dragon, because it's a great level 6 to be able to synchro summon into, and it is a tuner monster, so you can make your copy of Baron de Fleur with any other level 4 monster plus this card. I then play a single copy of Appaloosa, because it's easy with this deck to be able to put multiple monsters on the field, and then give this card 4 materials. If you guys have ever played Lightsworn, you guys know how easy this card is to summon in this deck. We then play a single copy of Curious. Curious is really good to send your copy of Soul Energy Max from deck to grave, to be able to search out Obelisk the Tormentor, which is really, really good. It also sends the additional top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard when a card is sent to the graveyard, so you're basically getting a Foolish Burial and a Mill 3. We then play a single copy of Hieratic Spheres, because you can bounce a card from your opponent's field, which is really good by tributing this card, and then special summon a dragon monster from your hand or deck, but make its attack defense 0, which is a pretty good effect on this card. And then finally, a single copy of Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon is in here because you're going to make that card with your copy of your light and your black, or your white and your black dragon, which is very important for this deck, because you can basically summon out one of them to the field, and then link it away for Striker Dragon, and then search the other one from deck, and summon out the second copy to be able to link Striker Dragon and it away for your copy of Hieratic Seal, which is just super good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This Obelisk Tormentor deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a deck like this, I highly recommend it. Lightsworn's really fun, but it's really insane when you play Obelisk the Tormentor in this build. I played a bunch of different builds to finally get to Obelisk the Tormentor with Lightsworn, and it's just really crazy how well it works. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.